Hi everyone. You've likely seen the footage of remote workers living in São Paulo penthouses or spending their lunch break surfing in Florianópolis, all for just a fraction of what it costs back in their home countries. With Brazil's digital Nomad visa currently requiring only $1,500 of monthly income, it's often marketed as a simple way to upgrade your lifestyle overnight. However, a lot of the vlogs often skip over a lot of the fine print and a lot of the challenges that people encounter when actually applying for this visa. They also don't talk about the 183-day tax residency trap, which is going to be relevant to you if you spend the whole year in Brazil. They also do not talk about the maze of the Brazilian cartório system or the fact that small paperwork errors could result in your application being denied even before you purchase a ticket. Today we're going to break down Brazil's Nomad visa, and we're going to give you a realistic, no-hype look at whether or not this visa makes sense for you in 2026. We'll talk about the requirements of the visa, we'll talk about the bureaucracy you're likely to face when you apply, and we'll also talk about what life is like actually on the ground in Brazil. Let's start with the requirements for the visa. According to official documentation, it says that you need to prove that you're making $1,500 a month from outside of Brazil, or alternatively, you could show $18,000 US in savings. But the paperwork when you apply is where it gets a little bit complicated because of the bureaucracy on the ground. It's incredibly specific, and you'll face major hurdles in actually preparing these documents, which could take time. The biggest hurdle is almost always a background check. Brazil generally will not accept local or regional police reports, and they want a national-level crime report from your home country. You can't just hand over a printout, you have to follow a very specific chain of authentication. First, the document has to be apostilled by your government to prove it is legitimate. It has to be translated into Portuguese, but by a sworn Portuguese translator, which is someone who's officially licensed by the Brazilian government. If you miss one of these steps, you're likely to have an application that's dead on arrival as soon as you apply. To apply for the visa, you could go to a consulate or you could use the Migrante web portal once you're already in the country. Just keep in mind that as of April 2026, Brazil has brought back the e-visa requirement for people from the US, Canada, and Australia. So if you're planning to fly down as a tourist and apply from inside Brazil, you first need to secure an e-visa. The written law says that the visa is valid for 1 year and it's renewable for another year, which on paper caps your total stay at 2 years. However, there's a bit of a gap right now between the law and how the government is actually operating. Immigration lawyers on the ground have reported that under the current administration, they're allowing people to renew for a third time, effectively offering indefinite stays as long as you meet the income requirements. However, you shouldn't bank on this continuing forever, but right now it looks like the rules are being favorably applied. To actually live your life in Brazil, you need to get a CPF, which is a Brazilian tax ID. You could apply for this online before you arrive, and you probably should because without it, you won't be able to get a local SIM card, open a digital bank account, or sign a lease, at least formally. On that note, standard apartment contracts in Brazil usually are 30 months and require a local guarantor. Since you'll be coming in as a foreigner, you probably won't have a local guarantor, and you'll likely rely on Airbnb for monthly stays, or you'll need to use flexible platforms like Tabas or Charlie that are built for nomads and bypass this 30-month requirement. Now, this is one of the more important parts of the video, and one of the things that a lot of influencers often ignore. The 183-day tax rule. If you spend more than 183 days in Brazil within a 12-month period, you automatically become a Brazilian tax resident. It isn't something that you sign up for, it just happens if you're physically present within the country. Once you're a tax resident, Brazil expects you to pay taxes on your worldwide income through a mandatory monthly payment system. If you're American, you'll have to use the foreign earned income exclusion or the foreign tax credit to avoid double taxation, and if you're a citizen of another country, you want to check to see how your local tax laws apply. Also, if you're an entrepreneur paying yourself dividends from an LLC, keep in mind that as of January 2026, Brazil introduced a 10% withholding tax on dividends paid to non-residents. The reality concerning safety on the ground depends really on where you live. For example, in São Paulo, robberies hit a 25-year low in 2025, and the vast majority of crime that does happen involves phone snatching or people getting pickpocketed on the street. It's important that you develop some street smarts before going to Brazil, and you want to keep aware of your surroundings all the time. Cities in the south tend to be a lot safer than cities in the north, which can be particularly dangerous if you don't know what you're doing or where you're going. These cities can be a lot more dangerous than North American or Western European cities, so you want to pick a city based on your own individual circumstances and preferences. That said, in most places in Brazil, your chances of being a victim of a crime or having a bad experience can be greatly reduced if you just use a little bit of common sense. Culturally, Brazilian people are incredibly warm and friendly, but English isn't widely spoken outside of tourist spots and major cities. So if you don't plan on learning Portuguese, you are at a high risk of getting trapped in an expat bubble, and dealing with local offices can be challenging. Should you go to Brazil and pursue this option? If you want a massive New York-style metropolis with incredible food, São Paulo would be a good place. Neighborhoods like Pinheiros are great, and you'll find a one-bedroom flat for around $540 a month. If you prefer a beach lifestyle, Rio is beautiful, but you have to be smart about your neighborhood because safety and affordability are issues. If you want a fast-growing hub, Florianópolis is great in the south. It's very safe and has a wonderful community of remote workers, though it does get cold in the wintertime. Ultimately, if you're earning dollars or euros, the cost of living in Brazil is hard to beat. You'll get much more bang for your buck. The culture and the time zone alignment with the US and even Europe to some extent are also massive perks about being in Brazil compared to being in Asia. But it's not entirely frictionless, and you'll have to be willing to stomach some of the bureaucracy and deal with the safety issues if you're going to go this route. You'll also want to have your logistics in order, and you want to be prepared in the event that you do become Brazilian tax resident. That said, Brazil offers a quality of life that's very unique and laid back for many Western people. Let us know in the comment section if you intend on pursuing this visa or if you have any questions about it.